Thanks, Karakia.
Whakatau ki duri, whakatau ki tunga, kia mākina ki kiuta, kia mātara whana ki tai, kia kia nā te ata kore he te o, e tohu ki hei mauri ora. Te mihi tuatahi, mihi ki nā mate, ko we have to keep it poor, ai tēnei wiki, ki te kāro aroha, ki te whānau o Ngāro Wāhia, Kuranga Waiwai, ai, kia koe te kingi, ai moi maira, moi maira, moi maira. Te ono tātou, ono rātou kia rātou, te ono tātou, tātou kia tātou, ai tēnā koutou. Ki nā manuhere ko tamā nei, ki te whakarongo ki tēnei hui, tēnei komiti, nau mai hara mai. Ki nā kaikaunihera, nā kaimahi o tēnei whare, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou. Kia koe Viki, tēnā koe mō tō kaihaututanga o tēnei waka, kia koe.
So we'll get underway with today's meeting related to policy and strategy. So just firstly, apologies. We've got apologies from Councillors Sunform and Mary Joyce online. I'll keep an eye open and acknowledge if he does come in. And also Councillor Burns, who's away on. So then just in terms of conflict of interest, don't have any today. And then public forums, deputations and petitions, we have the pleasure to invite Kaylee Patterson, Iona Thompson-Wild and Bronte Fitzharding, who are representing Next Generation Conversation today. And I think Sean Val will also come up with them. And they're here today to talk to us about the climate action plans, the public forum to us. So if you'd like to come to the table. For these. So to let you know that we've got, do we have slides? Speaking, so we don't worry about slides. And so you have 10 minutes to speak, and then a minute to go, a little bell will get rung. So you just have an indication you're coming to a close, and then council can ask you questions after that. So thank you really very much for coming. Start when you're ready.
Whakatau, my name is Bronte. Thank you for the opportunity to share our thoughts and ideas on the Environment Canterbury Climate Action Plan. Today we are representing the Next Generation Conversation, otherwise known as the NGC. We are a coalition of 11 climate change activists aged 10 to 16 years old, based in Auckland. First formed in 2021, we voluntarily meet after school to discuss climate change policy and actions and seek opportunities to engage with and work alongside decision makers. I've been a member of the team since early 2022.
Kia ora. My name is Iona. I've also been a member since 2022. Over the past 3 years, the NGC has engaged with numerous agencies and provided feedback on their climate change plans and policies, including the Ministry of Transport, the UN Committee for the Rights of the Child, the Christchurch City Council, and Select Committee Inquiry into Adaptation. We have also submitted on the National Adaptation Plan and presented at various conferences, webinars and hearings.
Tēnā koutou, my name is Kaylee. I've been a member of the NGC since early 2023. Over the past 3 years, we've all been lucky enough to be involved in change education at our schools. Not only did we learn about climate change science, but how to reduce and respond to its impacts efficiently. This included looking at different worldviews and perspectives, learning about respectful communication and critical thinking, understanding our rights as children and young people, taking both individual and collective action.
Like many young people, having the opportunity to provide feedback and to be genuinely heard and listened to is very important to us. So nearly 86 years ago, climate change was first proven a real thing, but the facts were largely ignored as people didn't believe humans could have a big impact on our planet's ecosystem. 36 years ago, scientists insisted real action was needed. Today, we still haven't seen much real action towards adapting to and mitigating climate change. In the decades to come, we, as the next generation, will be living with the full force of a changing climate. This will include the outcomes, good or bad, of the Climate Change Action Plan. They will impact us the most. Therefore, our investment in the problem and in the solutions is greater.
So picture this. Imagine there's another climate change event, a bit like Cyclone Gabrielle. This could be happening anywhere in Aotearoa, New Zealand. At that moment, those experiencing the event will need to be prepared. This includes understanding what and why it is happening, what can be done to adapt the risks and impacts, and what options they have short-term as well as long-term. Today, we would like to discuss what we believe are key considerations and advice when it comes to climate change in general, as well as the Climate Action Plan specifically.
Before we had a chance to see the draft plan and what the council had in mind, we were asked to think about what was important to us when it comes to climate action. In summary, they are working with and being in nature, climate change education, being able to move around easily and sustainably. This all needs to be done in a way that respects te tiriti, different cultures, worldviews, and perspectives in all other living things.
So, guided by these things, we are of Environment Canterbury developing a climate action plan. We are all about action when it comes to climate change, not just talking about it. Because none of us want to be here in the future talking about this still, and just we have done something different. We need to prioritize climate change, and that means increasing people's understanding of the causes and the risks, how we can respond, and the actions we can all take together.
We really like the fact that the Council's action plan highlights the importance of making sure people understand what climate change is and what the impacts may look like for them locally. We know through our own experiences, targeted climate change education is key. The more you know, the more engaged you are, the more ideas shared, and the more action taken. However, we found some of the plan hard to understand. For it to work, we need a lot of different people from lots of different backgrounds reading and understanding it. And then, hopefully, they will be able to be part of making it happen. So, guided by what is important to us, we would now like to share a summary of our specific feedback on the plan's themes. For feedback on the themes, goals, and actions, please read our written feedback. Copies are available from us at the end of our presentation.
Theme 1, Adaptive, Resilient Communities. The goal for this theme is making sure Canterbury's communities are empowered by equitable, local adaptation planning to embrace a climate-resilient future. In general, to be adaptive and resilient, we believe that people need to understand what they are preparing for. This includes providing education for older people, not just children and young people. We think this could be achieved by integrating climate change education into the New Zealand curriculum in all schools and all communities. By doing this, we think this will help them understand what's going on, including understanding the risks in the communities. They can then feel that they can make a difference. Environment Canterbury can support this by facilitating climate change education in schools and their communities.
In the second theme, Vibrant, Resilient Ecosystems. This theme's 2050 goal is working with nature, which we totally support, and how that can reduce climate risks. It is also about making sure Canterbury's environments and taonga species are flourishing. Overall, everyone know and understand what needs to happen to protect and restore wildlife. Information about this should be accessible and easy to understand. Instead of trying to do this all at once, we suggest focusing on a singular thing first and then the next one. We feel it is important to learn from different experts from this theme, that having different brains gives you an advantage. You also need to plan for not just now, but the future. People need to think about what they're doing now and how it may affect them for the future and how it impacts other beings and their habits.
Transition to low emissions. This theme focuses on Canterbury successfully and inclusively embracing a low emissions economy that aligns with New Zealand's commitment to reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Generally, as a team, we support initiatives that use less fossil fuels. One way of achieving this is improving or revamping the public transport system to lower greenhouse gas options. There is so much potential for the public transport system, but it is just not being realised. It isn't as accessible as it could be, and people get frustrated with not being able to get where they need to go. Maybe, although some could remain big, most of the fleet could be smaller and run more often to more places. Away from the public transport, but still lowering emissions, we also think there needs to be support for businesses to lower their emissions and climate change laws for farming.
And the final theme, climate leadership. The 2050 goal is that Canterbury's Rangatira, governance, people, and institutions are recognised for their bold, future-focused climate change action and leadership. The NGC strongly advocates for quality in intergenerational climate change education and working together to act. Making sure everyone understands allows people to be informed on what and how to do it, otherwise people just shrug it off and get on with life. By doing it together, we can have more ideas. Be respectful of Te Tiriti o Waitangi, moving to our Māori perspectives and worldviews. This is very important to us. It is important to see things from other people's perspective and how it will affect them. The question we do have about this theme's goal is, how is being recognised as leaders good for climate change and action? We think being recognised for being leaders is good, but it could be expanded. For example, you could share resources with others that celebrate what you're doing and why it is so great so they can learn from it, nudging them to do more and head in the same direction.
As a team and the wider group who aren't here today, we would again like to thank you for this opportunity. We look forward to working with you again in the future. We've now come to the end of the presentation and we're wondering if you had any feedback or questions for us. It would be helpful to get feedback from us, as anything you say or do now affects us for our future.
Thank you very much for that. And then so questions beyond
Great presentation. Thank you for making the time to come and obviously spending time to consider and think about these big, challenging things. I've got two questions. One question was, you at the start of your presentation, sorry, I can't remember your names, but the petition right at the end there on the right. You said that the climate's changing in the future and it's going to have, the impact is going to be on you and your generation. But it's also changing now and having an impact on existing generations and existing ways of people thinking about how they're doing things as well. So it's not just in the future, but it's actually happening now, but it's harder now for people who are interested in their ways of doing things. And so one piece of feedback that I was going to ask is, maybe we need to think about that as well, and how we work with existing generations to start thinking about how we work with making them change their existing, because it's hard to change an older person to think differently. That's the fact of human brain. Oh, look, I'm the same. I'm not the old, but the question I had was the second part. You guys talked, you only really mentioned businesses once in your presentation. Businesses and consumer behaviour, in my research, I'm doing a bit of research for a PhD at the moment, part of this is very, very important. And you talked about the consumers, or you talked about us changing behaviours, but you never really talked about how you might think about how business could change its way of thinking, and how business might be able to work with its consumers to change behaviour. So have you had any thought to that, and how do you think that might work in terms of our climate action?
A little bit is a business won't change just because in a few years' time, because they're all thinking about their consumer, like what they're trying to sell or help. So if they get support from others or have a better reason to, it would encourage them to change their ways to become more sustainable and climate friendly.
Good. And just one is so, I mean, it's circular, isn't it?
Yeah,
Saying that consumers, business and
vice versa.
it's like, but to the first question, which sort of ties in with that response about business, about older people, do you have any suggestions on how you might help, or what we could do to help influence change in the older population? And do you even agree actually with the statement that older people struggle to change?
Yes, like especially my grandparents would know a lot less about climate action, what's happening. But that's why we have in our speech that education is like really important to us, especially like talking to the older people. What's its focus? We go around to schools, we teach them about things, and then they know that. But when we don't really see people going to parents or like they have a little bit, but not as much. Like we need to be going to the whole variety of ages, not just one particular group. So I think if we did that, there would be a better chance. Also with the businesses, they need motivation. Like if it's working for them, they're making their money, it's working. Why are they going to stop just because of them? If it's not going to affect them, if it's not at the moment, what's going to make them go, oh, okay, I'll just not do that? They need motivation. They need to know why and how they can make a difference.
We've got Nook, Robinson, and I think that's anyone else.
Ora, e mihi atu kia koutou e Whakatahi mā. Thank you for your presentation. I'm one of those older people, I think, but
You just got
I still actually believe that we get it and we're trying to do something about it. Look, one thing, I'm one of the 2 Naito councillors on Environment Canterbury, and I want to thank you actually for putting Te Tiriti and how we can actually all work together, and particularly around mana whenua. I think one thing that we always must keep in mind, and I just would be interested to see what you ones think, is that there's a lot of science around this. And I took one of the points that you said originally was it was identified about 36 years ago that action was needed on climate change. And I just make the point that it was even our ancestors and our grandfathers, great-grandfathers had identified a change actually that was happening, right across the taio or the environment a few generations ago. But do you have one thing that tangata whenua, Tiwi Māori are about, is that there's a thing called mātauraka Māori. And what that is that we listen to the science, and that's really important. But it's also listening to the Indigenous, take on the taio. And so, do you agree with that? Do you have a response? Particularly when we're working in partnership, that the two of them should be working together.
I agree that they should be working together. I think that it shouldn't just be one side, that we should have lots of different perspectives, different communities. That's always important.
I think it's always important to take, like we said, taking different worldviews and perspectives into account and having lots of different people's ideas and input on where we're going forward.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, ladies. Sorry. Honestly, you guys spoken very well today, first of all, and I'm sure your schools, I'm understanding there's 2 schools. Yeah. We'll be very proud of what you're doing today. And so with regards to including it in the New Zealand curriculum, do you think that maybe we're not doing enough in that respect at the moment? Or do you think, I mean, that's one part of it, but I guess some schools are trying to ingrain it within everything they do. I mean, some schools do it very well, but if we looked at it as part of the general curriculum, how would we do that? What was your...
Well, for our school specifically, I go to Governor's Bay School, and we found for specifically in the intermediate side of our school, year 6, 7, 8, we have introduced climate change into new parts of our learning, in our inquiry, in our reading, our writing. There have all been it's all been intertwined and been linked to climate change. So even if it's not a specific subject that is climate change, but it can still be brought into different parts of your curriculum and subjects that are that teaching. Yeah.
Just a quick question, acknowledging the schools that are here. So Governor's Bay, sorry, it was Kaylee, which school are you representing?
Chisholmwood Intermediate.
So I'm just wondering, you said you've got 11 of you in total at the moment, and obviously really committed because you've really been involved for at least around 2 years at least. So that's really fantastic for your in terms of the 11, do you know, are you all part of the Governor's Bay as an Enviro school?
Yeah.
School is your school an Enviro school?
We don't really talk about the environment much at our school.
Okay, so you do represent a mix. That's really great.
Can I just clarify? I think it's important they're not representing the
No, sorry, I realised
generation conversation. So
yes.
I think generally the group, we've got about 8 different schools represented, but they're here as next gen.
Yes. Yes, sorry, I didn't see when they said that.
It's just important. They're in the uniforms. I get
Yeah.
that. Yeah, but they're here as that group, the NC school.
Thank you. And what we'd like to do, what I'd like to propose is that we table the notes that you've are making available for us after. And you can table your notes. You can also table if it's your speaking notes and just the overview of actions, and they can then come through at the minutes next meeting, and so they're sort of captured in the system. So that would be really great if you could do that, and we'll make sure that they're circulated. Thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate you coming. Oh, sorry. Oh, yes. I do ask them.
Yeah.
Thank you. So what we'll also do is refer the points you've raised to our chief executive, and then we'll get a reply to you, an organisation response back to you. So we have the recommendations up on the screen, and so we'll receive a public forum from Kelly Patterson, Iona Thompson, and Felix Harding, from Next Generation Conversation. And so those recommendations, can I have a mover? Councillor Cranwell, and second person, Councillor Swiggs. So can I have all those who are in favour of this? Any abstentions or abstract or objection? Go on, thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Oh, I'm sorry, Harry.
Thank you.
It's right. Yeah, not fair.
Right, can we carry on? So 4.2, Deputations and Petitions, we don't have any related business, nothing. And then notice of motion, we don't have any either. And so it's minutes. So item 7.1, the minutes from the last strategy and policy. So does anyone have any comments or edits really? Edits for accuracy? No, none. So can I have a? Yep, there we go. So the recommendation to confirm the minutes. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Ward, and seconder, Councillor East. And so all those in favour, please say aye. Any opposed? No. So that's carried. So we then moving on to item 8.1. the Environment Canterbury Climate Action Plan, and have Maureen Cutler, Team Leader of Strategy and Planning, if you'd like to come to the table. Oh, and Jessie, sorry. So I'd like to present the paper.
The purpose of this report is the Strategy and Policy Committee with the final Environment Canterbury Climate Action Plan to consider its adoption. We'll take the paper and the attachment as read, but in terms of a few key points, we'd like to note that this is the first climate action plan for Environment Canterbury, and it will be reviewed every 3 years, aligning with the development of the next long-term plan. We've had several briefings with you on this plan to seek your feedback on various aspects, most recently in June this year. And since that briefing in June, there's been no material changes to the core content of the plan, so the actions and the sub-actions of the plan since then. It's important to note that this plan was developed as part of a collaborative development process with input by technical experts from across the council, Te Rōpūtuia, community members, including the Next Generation Conversation Group that just spoke. Staff would like to thank all those involved for their time and effort, and from myself as project lead, I'd like to particularly thank the Climate Change and Community Resilience Strategy team who drove the development of this plan on behalf of the organisation. It's important to note that this plan doesn't sit separately on its own. It aligns with the draft Canterbury Regional Policy Statement, and it aligns with our work with Canterbury TAs on climate action through the Canterbury Climate Partnership. It's fully integrated into and funded through the 2024-34 ECAN Environment Canterbury Long-Term Plan. And ultimately, this plan outlines Environment Canterbury's commitment to supporting and delivering climate action and risk management throughout Canterbury with our various partners and stakeholders. And so given these points, the committee adopts the Environment Canterbury Climate Action Plan. 2, notes the implementation of this plan is currently fully resourced through the 2024-34 Environment Canterbury Long-Term Plan. Notes the actions in the Environment Canterbury Climate Action Plan to be implemented in partnership with the Canterbury TAs were approved by the Canterbury Mayoral Forum last Friday, and delegates to the Chief Executive the ability to correct any minor errors and to make changes of minor effect to the final version of the action plan. I'll come back to you, Chair, for any questions for clarification.
Thank you. Councillor Edge.
Thanks, Maureen. I was just a question really related to page 15, item 9, where we've got the 4 bullet points with the themes that you've identified before. So looking at the theme 2, climate resilient ecosystems, and I'm not sure whether what I was concerned about was issues or resilience issues related to water quality and quantity, river flow investigations and water allocation reviews. Are those things inherent in this, or are they covered somewhere else?
Good point. And that's an important part of the environmental regulation and protection core service through the long-term plan. The key action regarding freshwater that's in the climate action plan is on page 62. It's under action K, which focuses on how we integrate climate change into council instruments and decision making. So if you look specifically at sub-action K8, which is around developing a robust evidence base to understand how climate change will impact water bodies, freshwater ecosystems, and the intention is that evidence base is integrated into upcoming decisions and the next phase of the integrated planning framework.
Great, thank you very much.
Councillor Mihi.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thanks, Maureen, for that presentation. You did note that all the parties, well, a number of parties that have been involved in this, and I note there's something like 13 that have come from the Mayoral Forum or Canterbury region. I'm wanting to know why on forward we've actually got 3 signatures there. This has been a council process, if I understand it, so I would expect that Scott would be, councillor Scott would be the chair's signature, and obviously CE, because this is an organisational thing. I'm just wondering if we're going to have three. I mean, I propose that we should actually have two. If we would have three, why would we not have the Mirror Forum, considering we've got something like 13 actions we're picking up on behalf of them? I'm not quite sure what percentage that is, because I'm not sure it's total. But yeah, so I would just ask why we've got those three signatures there. If we could just have the two signatures, which is what I prefer, and would that conflict in line with what the chief executive could cope with?
Has got.
The two signatures that were on this document from Craig's, it's definitely the reason for that is Craig's done all the work. He's worked with Mayor Gordon, he worked with Mayor Gordon, Mayor Gordon's over the moon about this. And then it was noted that as a chair I could sign it. And look, I think it's highly appropriate there are three signatures there. To recognise the fact that I was doing all the water ski and he was doing all the rowing, you know, like he did the work. You know, should we put that under all the work done by? And, you know, I was out of the room for a while, so, you know, he did even more. So I think it's appropriate. I mean, that's my personal opinion. It's not the council's opinion.
In terms of in terms of the Mirror Forum, Claire, that will come in that's in the partnership plan bit. So this is our plan. And so the Canterbury partnership plan has already been done. So they signed that one.
Well, I understand it. There's 13 that have come from the Canterbury Mirror Forum that we're actually, or the partnership, that we're picking up and taking the responsibility for. So it's highly linked and integrated, and we're taking the responsibility for that. So that's going to fall into our funding. It's not really, which I understand that is. So yeah, look, I just challenge it. This was a council decision. We had the workshops. It should be the council, and from my perspective, I think he's got respectively, you are the head of the council. And I would just prefer that. Otherwise, we're going to start finding that we're going to have multiple signatures on. I
feel like in this next section, particularly with that overlapping motive. There's good reason for you sitting here and listening. Councillor, we've got a question. I know it's to do with funding. I think Jennifer will be able to answer this.
Yeah, so my question actually goes around the consistency of the two documents that we've got. This one coming today. Also got our submission on the climate, the ERP submission. So in that submission, we've talked about, we've expressed how we're disappointed with the lack of the funds that have been taken away. So the CEI fund, the GEDI fund, we argued that removing those funds will have an impact on the level of the actions. We advocated for re-establishing the green climate action through the ETS. This strategy that we're looking at here states that the implementation would be fully resourced through our long-term plan 24-34, but it doesn't provide any detail in this document about sort of those specific actions that will be funded, particularly in light of lots of national funding. So I'm seeing potential risk around implementation of the strategy. So can you just talk to me about that? I'm maybe putting too many 2+2s together, but I am concerned about, we put these plans out, we don't have adequate funding, we get slammed by our communities by saying we're not doing enough. Are we building too much expectation about not being able to deliver stuff? That's where I'm trying to get. So maybe just tell me this. So.
For clarification, there are a couple of different aspects of the funding. For the actions that are not highlighted as the mural forum, those are currently being funded through the long-term plan. And there could be changes to the scope of those based on, central government funding. So that's what we're working through now. There's been a few announcements across the organisation are working towards. So the ones that are highlighted as mural forum, those are jointly funded with all of the Canterbury councils. And some of them we are leading as ECAN, some we're supporting. So all of the actions or those sub-actions in the action plan are fully funded and resourced at this stage. And it could be that the scope needs to change based on.
That's my problem, but that's my concern that at this stage, I don't feel, given now that I've read our other submission and the concerns that were raised in the submission that we're putting forward in another paper, I feel concerned that the stage is very uneasy to even approve this, given that I don't have very certainty around is the funding actually going to deliver the deliverables that we want. So that's just where I'm.
I think just in terms of the funding from central government, you mentioned the emergency response fund, the SURF funding, and that was where we were looking at the public transport futures work and decarbonisation of our fleet and all of those type of things. So without, we've just only received the National Land Transport Fund announcements yesterday. So that'll be similar to our LTP process. We'll need to reevaluate what we can do with the funding that we actually have. So similarly for this space, action to force out decarbonisation for the transport fleet as being our emissions reduction opportunity. We will need to reconsider, obviously, as we go forward, how much money do we have to do the improvements that we want to make to transport, for instance. So again, that's where Morag's talking about the scoping of what we actually, the action is the intent, how we actually fund it if there are decisions made that are outside of our control to an extent. How do we reevaluate but do stay the course as well? So in that instance, we do actually have a requirement to have a decarbonised fleet by 2035. So how do we actually do that and fund that is further questions for this council to consider as part of annual plan processes and subsequent.
I should just make one final comment that it's the public transport space that is the one that's more unknown. The rest of the climate action plan is known.
And that directly relates to that submission that we've talked about, which is on the agenda as well around the second emissions action plan.
Just flag as well on H.2, there is specifically say subject to national funding decisions around EVs, although I think the financing the market of EVs is actually hoping everything to the market given that is the preference anyway.
There is also the positive as well as we've received the funding around some of our flood projects as well, which is government funding the co-investment, which we welcome. So it sort of goes both ways. You can potentially do more as well, but that requires prioritisation of what we're doing as well.
So, are you?
It's just point 13. I mean, when we read the agenda, it just literally says that in the current so I think more than these have been looking at these policies that are permitting funding and the uncertainty, especially when we're reading these agendas, is there.
Yep, no, absolutely. But I mean, in terms of the governments, and I think that's what the LTP had the caveats over some of the transport funding in particular that we would need to come back and reconsider once the LTP had landed.
Robinson.
Through the chair, thank you. Just with regards to page 27 and just the coastal element, with regards to not just fisheries, but I guess the impacts of particular types of fisheries methodology on increased erosion of the coast. And another thing I actually thought about while I was considering that this morning is the dredging of shipping channels and the likes contributing to coastal erosion. One example is in Otago at the moment. Got an accelerated coastal erosion issue due to 4 days a week dredging in their channel. So it's probably I would seek some clarity within this, that can be in the future, because it is something that we're seeing more and more, with particularly bottom falling and churning up a lot of sediment and the like. So thank you. Wasn't really a question, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I can leave it then.
So anyone else? No. So I have a question on page 36, agenda 8.3. The sub-action says identify the communities most at risk of flooding by completing locating ability plan of the community flood prone area. And it says it's new. And I was just wondering, because I thought we understood quite well which communities were at risk of flooding and had that type of information quite detailed. But it's new, so presumably something different from you clarify.
Sure thing. Yeah, that's a good question. And understanding risk, we do need to have different types of risk assessments. So things like what are the risks to the econ assets along a river? What are the risks to community assets? What are the risks to ecosystems? And to build up a comprehensive picture. This particular sub-action is new because it focuses on gathering the spatial understanding, the detailed sort of spatial understanding of risk to Canterbury communities river by river, which we don't have as much as we need. We need that so that will set us up to take a risk-based approach to hazard management decision-making in the future, understanding that we need to be undertaking work and when, and also where to start community adaptation.
But essentially we have got some information that's sitting there, but it's building and getting to the level of
yes. Yes.
More focus for service. So mapping all of this work, all the different work programs and work streams and various projects and initiatives that include this type of work will help support the conversations that we need to have with our communities around adaptation of.
We'll have some maps coming to us in the future, which is always a good thing to hear.
Part of that forward work program that we have over the next 3 years, the LTP.
Yeah, I've got one more question. It's around page 47 of our agenda. Action. And I'm kind of sitting here wondering whether I'd ask it or not. And that's not really it. Again, there's two things here. There's the ERP submission that we've got here. It's sort of portioning us, or putting caution towards the over-reliance to segmentation. Key question. Yes, that's right. And then in this, we're looking at, that as being quite a key part of this part of the strategy. So I just had a little bit of concern about that. But then I wasn't going to raise that necessarily. I don't want to dive in a ditch over that. But then I was actually just reading the key risk and reduction opportunity. Protection will be most benefit to hill country environments and alpine environments and risk of all methods and urban communities at risk of flooding. At the moment, we've got hills in North Canterbury and fire. I don't think we're adequately putting the risk of fire on, especially on these economic other forestry that we're putting out cards on it. So I just had a problem with that because it's actually not giving benefit to all segments. Because when you plant forestry, you're creating one hazard. You might be reducing flooding risks, but you're actually increasing fire risks. And the Port Hills is a classic example as well. So, yeah, the other way we can, I don't know if there's something that's actually looking potentially down the track, but and that wording is inappropriate given the risk that we're having around this conversations around fire risk in forestry at the moment.
Make a point to clarify if you like, which would be that in the sub-action F1, the idea is that we're looking at the forest management plans as a way of understanding the risks, including absolutely fire risk as a priority there. So while Well, forestry as a general sort of concept and action, what I put into is the sub-action and what we're trying to do here, which is to have management plans and look at those in terms of managing that fire risk so that there is that benefit, and we're managing that risk.
Can I just add to that as well? The connection we wrote to the minister around the forestry issues that we had, and we had the response that we had. There is also the regional policy statement review. There is also the impact of district plans on how we manage land use close to forestry areas. So all of that taken into the round, if you like, is how we need to manage those risks associated with forestry and fire risk from changing climate in that respect.
I just want, just supplementary to what Councillor Sweets was talking about. Probably one of the examples is what's happening, for instance, at Rapaki, because they have a huge native tree planting project going on. What they're also doing is using one of the students from, I'm not sure what tertiary institution, but for a PhD around studying. We know that no tree is non-inflammable, but it's actually when you look at the native trees, it's work being done to put those that are less flammable native trees in in that kind of planting program. So that is kind of like a mitigation, I think, that you might be kind of identifying or want to identify. Whatever that's worth. I don't know.
And Councillor Cromwell?
Yeah, sure, through the chair. Just on section on J. So, J1, questions J1, J3 on page 60. It says to understand the action requirements of public decision. See that's in there. I suppose now is how are you going to do it? So have you got any kind of plan?
So what we're doing at the moment is working with colleagues at Te Runanga or Ngāi Tahu who are having conversations with Runanga, so not trying to double up there. We're really cognizant of Te Runanga or Ngāi Tahu's climate action plan to kind of and so there's some really good links that we can have in with that, particularly around the marae-centred adaptation planning. And so that's one way that we're really starting.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because that was my next question, J3, because of course we know that one staff member from this organisation has moved over to Runanga and is in a climate change area. So no doubt you're speaking to oh, okay. So you're going through to Runanga to go out to Papatipu Runanga.
To begin with, because she is having those conversations already and seeing how they are wanting to I guess be a part of the different actions within this action plan, what's most relevant to them given their priorities. But we are going to talk more with our Tuia team and something on other ways that we want to connect in and carry out those.
Okay. And I suppose under K6, the RPS kind of work, some of that's already been underway anyway, is it?
6.
Yes, it is, yeah.
Thank you.
Final question for me that you mentioned previously about the sort of how there's a bit cross-cutting, like things from the edge quite new the ecosystems, water, fresh water reserves, so things sit in different places and look like each one's its own specific place. When you think about it, there's obviously like a whole lot of connections that go in all different places that need actions to be taken by someone like under that by the organisation that we can play a good role in support or in advocacy. But with the ones that specifically sit with us, where we've got the routine role, how are you ensuring that these are all being picked up? There's a lot of them. How do they sort of feed through to the various teams and to the committee that will end up leading?
So we've got an implementation plan, so a detailed implementation plan, who's leading each sub-action, when is the I guess milestones and the deadlines and the delivery going to be. We're also mapping to the core services and the work programs, work programs under the core services, and then also the forward work program. So working with Catherine and other and staff on the forward work program and coming to the different committees that relate to these as well. So all those pieces.
Lovely. That sounds great. So that will feed into the conversation with the Councillor.
Thanks, Vicky. Just on page 28, where you describe the greenhouse gas emissions. I just confirming that the big pie chart is the one that you've used for a long time, which doesn't take into account imported products into Christchurch. This is concrete and stuff because they're accounted for outside the Canterbury region. Doesn't include domestic consumption, and it is gross emissions for agriculture rather than net emissions. So it's a rather distorted picture of our emission profile.
Do you want me to speak to that, or
if you that
You said yes.
statement, but if you want to respond to that.
She said yes.
Oh, sorry.
She confirmed my question.
So yes, it is gross emissions. And I would need to double check with our air quality team who put the inventory together that this comes from, as to the concrete question that you that you've got.
Well, in the past, when I've asked those questions, they've said, "Oh, this doesn't account for effectively imported stuff that comes into, especially our urban, but Canterbury in general, where those emissions are accounted for in other jurisdictions."
Yeah.
And this looks like the same pie chart, so I was just confirming.
Yep.
That would presumably be true of all imported products. That would then presumably be done the same for all. So it would be all imported products, be that fertilizer, feed coming from overseas, etc. as well. So it's sort of be really interesting.
That's our understanding.
Yeah.
Okay, is that all questions? Yeah. So Jessie and Laura, thank you very much for the presentation and the table. So we have the recommendations. Councillor Pauling, like to.
Yep, I'd like to move it. Yep, thank you.
And the second one. And just to note in the red, minutes or amendments from the, not technical amendments, but us to have to do staff and provide a couple of edits to the recommendations. So one is that we've replaced just the long-term plan with its full title. So in my head, targeting, and also just to correct the date for Marybourne meeting, which was actually the 30th, it's not Saturday, 31st. So we've got a mover and a seconder. Any discussion?
I go first.
You can.
Oh yes, you can.
Thank you. Hello everybody. I just want to put the team all together, Maura and the team, and Jeff, thank you so much for presenting this to us. A really fantastic team of people that I've been working with on this over the last year or so, and just wanted to really acknowledge the great work that's taken, not only for this work for our PCAN action plan, but for the Canterbury Partnership Plan as well. It's been a real pleasure to work alongside the staff on this, and of course with all the representatives from the TLAs that we've been working with as well, and chaired by Dan Gordon in that group. And we had a few meetings in this room too, actually, and I had to step in and chair a few of them when Dan was unavailable. And it was no small feat bringing all of those councils together and to get them to agree to the funding of it in terms of the implementation and action going forward. I know there was a few nervous moments in the rooms as we were dealing with that, especially with smaller councils that might not see themselves as having huge climate issues. But the good sense of doing this together and helping each other work towards that sort of common outcomes on this prevail. And so I just wanted to acknowledge all of that work that's gone into it. And also, really in terms of the work, this has been a long time coming in terms of the climate emergency that was declared a few terms ago, and of course, those councillors that were on that council that are still here. And in particular, I know that one on that quite a bit, bringing that to the table, and also Vicky and Elizabeth in our last term of council that really pushed the climate urgency for this council. And I think that work that was done last term, plus the climate emergency, has really led to this point, bringing all those other councils on board and getting the Mural Forum to really stand up on this matter. So I'm really proud of the work that's been done. Hey, none of these plans will ever be perfect. And the questioning the councillors have brought to it today is right. It's right to question them. But I also think we've just got to get on with stuff. And so it's great that we've finally got an action plan that we can now focus on. I think you could tell by the responses from Horag and Jess that they're on it. And I've got it pretty well integrated through the council, which has taken some time. That's sort of what Elizabeth asked for in the last term, and I feel like we're there. We've got good alignment through our systems, and not only in this council, but also now working with all those other TLAs as well. And that'll keep taking some time and effort to make sure we're all on the same page and working together. We've got 2 documents now, so the one that was approved by the Mural Forum last week, and now our own action plan, and of course each council doing their own planning and work as well. So yeah, really commend this to council and ask for council support to put this into action now and get on with it. Thank you.
So Councillor McKenzie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to vote against adopting the climate action plan, and I just thought I would like 2 seconds just to explain that objection. And it really goes back to the pie chart on page 28, which I think is misleading the people of Canterbury as to what the problems are we are facing in terms of climate action and greenhouse gas emissions. And if you start off with a misleading position, which that pie chart describes, then your actions are not necessarily reflected in achieving. And I read that in the plan, and I certainly read it in the commitments for government which comes later in this plan.
Okay, Councillor, you've got your hand up, yep.
I'm also today. Support everything that's on McKinsey. It's just information as well. My concern is probably more around the cost benefit analysis of climate action plan. And I'd just like to read a short paragraph that's attributed with Barry Bell, former MP and presently the chairman of the New Zealand Climate Science Coalition. The mainstream media do the world a massive disservice by refusing to acknowledge the facts that challenge their intensely doom-ridden view. Climate economics generally find that the costs of human-caused climate change will eventually exceed its benefits, but the net result will be nowhere catastrophic. But the costs of all the extreme policies campaigners push for are much worse. All told, politicians across the world are now spending more than $2 trillion annually, far more than the estimated cost from climate change that these policies aim to prevent each year. So I probably would like a bit of a cost benefit analysis of our climate action plan. What benefits have we achieved and at what cost? So I'll leave it at that, but I think we spend hugely too much money on climate change for the outcomes that we achieve at the moment.
Thanks very much for this report, and thanks very much to Chair and Deputy Chair for making this happen. And thanks for you and Elizabeth Mackenzie as well for telling us and helping and moving it forward since 2019. I mean, that's a long time ago. The climate emergency was declared by this council. And we basically, since that time, just been plodding along a little bit. I'm sure in the background staff have been working away anyway, but this is actually bringing it visible to the public. It's an excellent document. It's really readable, and the actions are deliverable. We have got funding in place. It might not be all the funding over time as we look at things on an annual plan sort of basis, but that's no reason at the moment not to adopt this plan, given that the Councillor Pullen said that the Rural Forum have adopted their parallel report as well. So there is consensus across our Canterbury Union, if you like, in terms of getting moving on this. For me, just page 21, it's really great to see one of the very first parts of this document, a statement from Environmental Canterbury Youth Ropu. And the statement that they say there, I note the statement that they've said, we are watching the response from our leaders and calling for action. So, you know, we're being looked at. The Ropu recognise and endorse this plan's importance, not only as a strategic action plan, but for the future historical record. They will point the finger if we haven't delivered and we have continuing catastrophic disasters occurring across this Canterbury as well as the rest of New Zealand. The plan is clear about the unequivocal impact of human-induced climate change and our impact on the planet and our communities. We have hugely overreached our resource exploitation, and in doing so, greenhouse gas emissions are warming the planet at a fast pace, unprecedented on a global scale. Page 23. The plan refers to Environment Canterbury's declaration of climate emergency in 2019. And at that time, it made a commitment to provide strong leadership, including working with both regional partners and producing a collaborative response. Well, this is the end product of that collaboration in terms of being able to deliver something. The plan also aligns with, of course, that as we've heard, the Canterbury Climate Partnership Plan, prepared through the More Forum. The plan identifies opportunities associated with warming and some benefits, but acknowledges that climate-related risks for not acting will come at a far more greater cost in the future. On page 24, it describes our international and national commitments. And the council wants to seize the opportunity to take advantage of this transition to a low emission economy, which will improve social, environmental, cultural, and economic well-being into the future. And these well-beings address New Zealand's commitment to drive sustainable human development outcomes identified in the United Nations 2015 agreed Sustainable Development Goals for 2030. Those well-beings are extremely important for the planet. And the key ones there that have been mentioned as item 6, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, reduced inequities, sustainable cities and communities, climate action, and life on land and under the water. I really will be absolutely supporting this document to go forward, and I hope that over time we will start to chip away at the actions that we've identified.
Let's go.
Oh, yeah. So I was lucky enough to chair that climate emergency meeting. And I think at the time there was not a full understanding of where we need to get to. And through the time between that point of time and this point of time, there was a lot of discussion, and I think there was a lot of trying to line ourselves up with the mayors, the Canterbury Rural Forum, in terms of their view. It's quite an emotional space when you start talking of these things and a TA perspective, because of course that inundation, district planning stuff is all theirs. We have done a really good job in providing the information to that group of people through the likes of Ned Gordon to get this document to where it is, and I think it's a really good document, Warwick. You should be pretty proud of it, actually. And Catherine, your responsibility in steering it through the process. I thought you were hiding. I felt you were clear on my back. No, well done. And so that's a really, I think it's a good document because it's got so much information about what's possible, and that's what the people of Canterbury are looking for. Philosophically, you can agree or not agree with climate change. You can go into your, but there are a lot of people, 670,000, who are pretty interested in this stuff, and we had 3 young people here this morning that are concerned about those things. And I think just actually being able to put this document out in the public arena and give some comfort, not all comfort, but some comfort to people that, hey, there's a group of people thinking about this is a big help. So, and again, just pushing back to you, Craig, in terms of the work that you've done here. That is a passion of yours, and essentially just wanting to Councillor Mackenzie, who was pushing pretty hard on this, and also Councillor Farm, who was pretty passionate about this. I must say though, personally, I'm very happy with subsection H, because I think all those things in subsection H, which is on page 54 or page 37, are helpful for us in the next while. It's about the decarbonisation of public transport. We thought long and hard on I've been thinking about this, Chair, about we need to do something about decarbonising public transport. I think we're actually getting ourselves into that situation. So I think this is a good thing. I've looked at all of those, and there's 4 of them that are new, but I think we can get on with those things pretty quickly. So well done. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I just want to put on the table again my concern, and it does support Councillor Mackenzie concern around the table on page 28. I think that's the one you're doing, figure 1, the diagram. And it goes back to the point is that we have this discussion about greenhouse gas emissions, and we actually should be having the discussion about warming impact. And that's what I find quite concerning looking at this progress where agriculture is absolutely slamming. Now, I know that pastoral agriculture in Canterbury is certainly a big part of our economy. It's a big part of the way of life in Canterbury, in fact. But I really think that if you actually looked at the warming impact, it would be quite different to what's actually happening. However, I'm going to support this today because so much of the action plan has already been passed through the long-term plan, and also working with our renewable partners. I will be supporting it, but I do have some support and sympathy for the points that were raised around the diagram and how that's interpreted. But I've been on at this table long enough about the fact that it's the warming impact that we should be worried about rather than equivalent CO2 emissions.
That's a Cromwell.
Kia ora tātou, to support Chair Scott's kōrero, back in 2019. He chaired that meeting, as he said. I was there supporting it for the climate change emergency. And then from that date moving forward, we've tried to integrate it through all the work we do here at Environment Canterbury. It kind of led into It's Time Canterbury, the Canterbury platform for climate change conversation. And it's good to see that that's actually moved forward onto the climate action plan. So really supporting, having a cap moving forward. And, as we've heard from the 3 this morning from the Next Generation Collective, just articulate and, what they've kind of the research they did, and the teacher or the person behind said this is all their own work. So to actually see, that generation in intermediate really think about what the effect is moving forward. That's a kind of a tohu that they know that something's coming. And then Dion mentioned that it's here now. So that's reflective of that. So supported 100%, but also a reason why I'm speaking now is just to acknowledge Benita Wakefield. She was a Papatipu Runanga member who worked on all this. Doesn't live anymore. But I was with her brother up in Ngārua here on Monday, and just bringing back that reflection that she was passionate about this as well, and seeing this come to fruition. And in a sense, I dedicate personally this to her. Kia ora.
Kia ora. I too want to acknowledge all of those past and present that have actually been responsible for putting this together. You can see, there's been a lot of kōrero from the beginning, and it really has to start somewhere, because those three from the next generation gave us that perspective. And one of the things that they're looking for is leadership in this space now. And we can only reflect that in making decisions like this, positive decisions moving forward. I know that there are colleagues on this table that have different thoughts on it, and I acknowledge that as well. But I just want to ensure that the mana whenua, tangata whenua, tiwi Māori perspective is recorded here as well, because climate change to us is deeply rooted in our cultural beliefs. And it's actually that connection to the whenua and the wai, the water, and then all of that actually is based on our connection to nature, our intergenerational responsibility, our cultural values. And this is one where climate change really does pose a threat, real threat. I'm not saying the rest of it is not real, but this is actually quite key, to mana whenua, tangata whenua. The other part of it, though, is that it's around our Indigenous knowledge that I actually asked the question today and made that point. And the other part, obviously, is the restoration of our ecosystem that we have seen degraded, we have seen have been actually pushed to their limits. Some of it is gone now. And so it is that restoration that we really do. We can't restore all of it, but at least this is an opportunity for us to be able to restore part of it as well. And when I look at that feedback from those three young rangatahi this morning, again, acknowledging the treaty and all of this, tangata tiriti as well, not just and as treaty partners. And again, I come back, it's about leadership in this space. And today, if we are able to get this thing signed off and keep moving, that is something that we can show. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Chair. We would like to acknowledge all of the work that has gone into this document from past and present, staff and councillors. I do support the document and all the people who contributed to it, but I am always I'm disappointed with the photograph as Councillor by the East alluded to around the gross agricultural emissions. Would you like to see future information like this where we actually present the net? And I do also what Councillor Scott said around public transport. I think that's great going forward that we look at decarbonisation, but if we are going to go down that road, we need to look at alternative forms of generation.
So I'll come back to you, Craig. So I'll say, just give my minute. So yeah, just really, really pleased to see this. And I totally acknowledge all the work that staff have done. And I've been here now for quite a while. And this isn't just all new stuff, like this is, we are actually doing stuff that's really acknowledge the fact there is stuff that's been happening for some time. But it's great to people all together to see some really specific things that need to happen, to see how it crosses all the various parts of the work that we do in our organisation. And really fantastic that we're connected so much now to all of the other PAs. That was the thing that Councillor Mackenzie and I were really trying to sort of drive last term, to see that all come together, because we can only, we will achieve so much more when we're all joined up. And really exciting that we've got the long-term plans also committed to it. We can't get these outcomes without actual funding. So it really looks like we've got it forward. Yeah, I totally support it. And to know that there's the implementation plan as well. So we'll just like make sure that we're monitoring the outcomes as we go, and try and keep on track as best we can. And if we get as question the funding front, if there's additional funding comes through from government for aspects of this plan and then not for others, hopefully over the time frame that we're looking at within this, we'll get there on the various parts, and we do what we can. Big stakeholder. Now, what's the
Just a point of clarification. I think you and Peter Scott have both referred to Councillor Mackenzie, and I am Councillor Mackenzie, and I'm referring to
Thanks for the work.
former Councillor Mackenzie. I just want to make sure that that's clear.
Sorry.
It's about a credit for moving mountains and mountains.
You're Yes. Okay. No. The current councillor Mackenzie. Thank you for that clarification. That's the Swigs.
Based on the, I can ask questions. Okay.
Based on the conversations that three of our councillors have just had, are these transportation emissions that we are measuring here tailpipe emissions, or are we actually measuring the whole of life emissions for transportation?
I would need to double check, but it doesn't include, it's not, no, it's tailpipe, so the embedded emissions.
From stats as well,
Bearing in mind, can I just, sorry, more as to check. So in terms of like the lifetime emissions of an EV car or an EV vehicle compared with an internal combustion engine vehicle, the lifetime emission of an EV is, in New Zealand's context, where we have a high proportion of our electricity is renewable, that they are lower when we take into account the lifetime, but that doesn't ignore the fact that it's about to now get to the nub of this issue around, what are we consuming, imported versus. So Jesse, what comes to the table?
So if I circulate the emissions inventory again to councillors, so you can see where the data has come from, particularly around transport and tailpipe emissions and those type of things, but also around the agricultural emissions as well.
Yeah, and I think it would be a good idea to just bring some more information around. There's obviously some competing ideas and understanding, and the differences in understanding and of ideas, and how we can represent different aspects of emissions and on methane and all those different things. I think it'd be really helpful to have some competition, how to understand, and also that aspect where there's that. Do we look at all of the emissions or all of the impact in a place by the consumers, or how does it sit with relation to the producers? So, at the moment we talk about China, for example, being this massive producer, but of course we consume a lot of their products. At the same time, we're saying, well, we don't want to count our emissions that are from our production, but they you know, it's got to be one way or the other. So it'd be really helpful to have something on to us that explains that different sort of effects or ways, mechanisms, measuring.
So happy to circulate the emissions inventory, which we've discussed previously. So, and that has the scope of what that covers. So, yeah, if there's anything councillors have further to that, then that's something to discuss in the future as well.
Yes, sorry. Anyway, thank you.
Can I just support you on what you just said, because that was the point that I was trying to raise. And it goes back to the three girls who were here earlier, presented, highly intelligent, passionate about the subject, but it's important that when we're having a debate in the community, such as they're having, that they have the right information to have that debate on, and so they're targeting the right outcomes. And if we're not basing our basic assumptions on that right information, then you're never going to get to the right outcomes.
Yeah, no, I think she's fine. It is complicated. It's to be really clear, it is all quite complicated. Right, so anyone else before the mover speaks?
Yeah. Oh, I'm just, yeah. People are going to push the button. I actually strongly support this document, and I acknowledge when I was not a councillor way back in the day when this council declared the climate emergency. I thought it was amazing. And I also looked at the work of City Councillor and ex-Mayor Mihi back at the time as well, and acknowledge her for most to recognise the climate emergency as a real big thing. And it is. And here we are, and the proof is in the implementation within all the plans coming up. And I really look forward to seeing that as, you know, this is the main framework for that going forward. And I think it's, yeah, it's a great start. And I'm very proud of this lady as chair today, watching her, you know, push for this as well. I actually can understand where some of the other councillors are coming from too, and in particular also Claire in her comments on warming impacts. Actually, I actually note that as well, and it's actually a term that is used a lot these days to explain especially oceanic issues. So the more we talk about these things and nut it out, then we can have a clear picture rather than it being part of a debate, because it is actually something that needs to be recognised as well. And thank you for your work today. And great, I don't totally support it. Thank you.
Right, Councillor Paul.
Well done, everybody. Hey, great debate around the table on this, and just wanted to reiterate, you know, the work that every TLA in our region has endorsed for the partnership plan, and that every mayor has supported that too. So just acknowledging that, and that's no small feat, like I said, to get that to happen. And that a lot of the work that's outlined in our plan is required anyway, and in a way, like it's so integrated across everything that Environment Canterbury does, that a lot of the work that you see in there is linked to so much stuff that's in the LTP anyway. It's really important. And yet acknowledge the stuff about the warming impact versus the greenhouse emissions. It's not that the information in our document is wrong. No. It's just the data that we've used in this particular report. But I do think the long-lived gas graph is quite important too, because it does show that there is a much more even balance in terms of that amongst those different sources for that. So I think that's important. Yeah, and to your point about Benita, just so you know, Benita is specifically acknowledged in the partnership plan on page 8 for her work, as well as the other Whakatapu Runanga that were involved in the risk assessment on the steering group there, but also every council and all the other partners that need to make that plan. So just wanted to know that. And not to your point, you'll note that on page 8 of our plan, it's also in the partnership plan. There's a recognition there about the Te Fu Te or Te Ho framework that was used in the risk assessment that was developed, sort of co-designed with Whakatapu Runanga with Mātauranga at its heart. So just know that, yes, we've got work to continue on with going forward about how we use that implementation, but it's just good to know that it is in the basis of all of that. So yeah, really keen to see us move forward as thanks everybody.
So we've moved in a second there. So put that motion. So all those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? And see cast east. So you want that report? Yep. And that's carried. Thank you. So then we're amendment 2. Updates, submission support. So we have Peter Ellis, Senior Construction Advisor, introducing the report. So
Yeah, just to let you know that item 1.2, if you do carry on, but panels the back on this.
Yes.
Why do it? I'm involved in it. We'll vote on that one.
Thank you, the opportunity today. So yeah, there's two parts to this paper I'll present today. The first part is reporting back through submissions and a hearing that councillors have agreed with and provided feedback on the last couple of months. These have been signed out by the chair, given the time constraints of the consultations as per the council's submission policy lodged with the organisations. They are provided with the report today for visibility. So these submissions are submission to the Ministry for the Environment on the second emissions reduction plan, submission to Runanga at Ngāi on the draft reserve management plan for the historic reserve on Weapa, the submission to Selwyn District Council on the Waikirikiri Care Tour future Selwyn strategy, and also understand that Chair Scott and Councillors Southworth attended the hearing on that last week as well. And the paper also notes that Deputy Chair Pauling and Councillor Southworth attended the hearing to the Finance and Expenditure Select Committee inquiry into climate adaptation. This was following a submission to the Environment Select Committee on inquiry of the same topic last year. And the Select Committee report is due back tomorrow on that, so watching out for that one. The second part of the paper, we also introduced to the Strategy and Policy Committee for information, overview of the upcoming central government consultations of interest to council. Government have signalled may be introduced to Parliament by the end of the year. More consultation details are expected and staff will bring these forward as further information comes available. But the purpose of the information update today is to give councillors visibility of those upcoming consultations, which coming months and into the next year. Also acknowledge that the report was written at a certain point in time at the time of the LGNZ conference, where there were a number of policy announcements made at and following the conference. We intend to provide an update to the committee on a regular basis as government moves through their reform information that's available. Specific analysis and advice on those proposals going forward through this committee and briefings and workshops. If there's
so I have a mover in a second. Now Councillor Mackenzie has requested that we take these items in under one separately. I don't think there's a problem with that. In fact, that ties in anyway with Cranwell's.
Yeah.
You can sit back on one, so that seems sensible to me. So
Just a question, can we move all of them but just vote separately on them, or do we have to move and second each one? I'm happy to move and second all of them and move.
Really want to.
I agree. Happy to move all. Sorry.
Yeah.
Happy to move them.
doing them separately.
And
Is there anyone
vote on them all together. Yeah.
I'll move the second one.
Great calling, council.
We have to work through one first and then the next, then the next. So we'll just do it here. It's straightforward, but I appreciate the desire to put them through quickly, but I think we'll probably get more complicated longer anyway. Won't do that. So hold on. We do the first one first. So we have the crap and falling. We'll move that one. So second and third. regional council. This is on the fossil emissions reduction plan. And so I have, we've got a mover and a seconder, so all those who are in favour. Oh, sorry, I'm forgetting the debate bit.
And I apologise to the council because this is just grandstanding really, and I'm not a great fan of grandstanding, but I'm going to vote against receiving a noting 1.1 on the basis that there's a whole lot of stuff in here which just doesn't stack up from any level of science or common sense. And there are statements such as technological advancements cannot be treated as a built solution, which are sort of it's not based on any reality when you make comments like that in the submission. So I've got a real problem with quite a lot of the content of the submission. And so I just want to register disapproval of the submission. I know it's already gone and it's too late. Just registering that.
Does anyone else like to speak to this particular? I would just like, I mean, to me, that specific point that Councillor Mackenzie's just raised, absolutely, I personally agree with the statement that we've made in our submission. I think it's actually an excellent submission. And particularly with that one, it's like we have technologies, we have things that we can implement now, practices that we can change that are here now, not waiting for, I don't know, like practicing be developed that might take 20 years, might not actually be effective. We've had some other things that have been put out there. We were supposed to have nuclear fission by now. Is it fusion? I get confused. But you know, the things that we've been expecting, carbon capture and sequestration, like so many things, storage, there's so many things that we think will be here in the next 5 years, and then it's still not here. So that's the point. Is
you're misinterpreting what I said. I'm a great fan of technology, but this is saying the last part of 55 is saying, oh, we don't like technological achievements. We can't rely on technology. I think that is probably a lot of our future. And then 56, I don't agree with much of what they're saying. 57, I don't agree with. So there's a whole lot of stuff.
Okay. That's fine. I think your reading of what's put in this submission in terms of technological advances is quite different from mine. I don't think if the technological advances are here now, great, let's use them. But we can't hold off doing stuff now with what we've got now in the hope that there'll be something, even if we're investing in it, that it will come to be. Because that's my interpretation, that's your interpretation.
I agree with what you're saying, but that's not what 55 says.
Okay, that's how I'd read it, but I think that's anyway. I will be supporting it, and so no one else wants to speak. Okay, so all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. And those against. Councillor Mackenzie. Anyone else? That's these. So we'll have that report. That's okay. So then,
Can I have those names of the people who agree with that?
Are
you for a division, one of the two?
Yeah, we've just recorded it. Oh, it's not coming up there.
I'm happy to have my name noted in the comments.
Yeah, it's just not coming up on the screen, but it's on this screen that I can see.
That Councillor Mackenzie got dumped from the council. Well,
Yeah, it's got an A. It's
Mick, not Mick.
A. It's dumped. Period. But dumped.
Oh, I think, withdraw that
Okay.
comment, please.
That's carried.
Yeah, I think Councillor Mackenzie needs to withdraw the comment he just made about Councillor Elizabeth Mackenzie being dumped from the council.
Okay, can we have that right? That's, well, it's slightly a little bit rude.
Well, she was
rude.
She lost in the last election.
Yes, thank you.
That's dumped.
Correct. Thank you. So, given that all of us could get on the be not elected again, maybe we should all be respectful.
I'll move 1.2.
So 1.2, move it, yes.
Oh, no, I'd
So-
rather, can I move it?
Oh, if you'd like to.
You can move it.
Would that be right?
I'll see.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so we have a mover and a seconder for the item 1.2.
I know, the other one.
I want to move a seat notice.
So
Yeah, that's right. Got on board and stuff.
So this one's on the submission to Turunanga Mai Kahu on the draft survey. And so all those in, discussion, so.
I just wanted to clarify why my preference was to move it, because there is a lot of history there. And particularly with Te Mai Haranui, and what happened there. It's quite a complex of great historical significance at Wainaha, particularly with the Ngāti Toa battles, wars and things, and a lot of things happened. So I appreciate Chair Scott moving to the seconder, and that's the reason why I want to move it.
I think it's fundamentally one of those things that we should support. My dissertation is supporting it actually.
Yeah, reading parts of the document, excellent document, well presented. The description of the history and the terrible things that went on there. So Europe side, and convictions under this. It's fantastic. Probably would have liked to have seen it gone a little bit wider to connect to the road, but anyway, that's the key thing. But yeah, no, it's brilliant.
All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Oh, and Councillor Cranwell step back because he's involved on the. So that's carried. Anyone? Oh, any against? Any against? No, so that's carried. And then item 1.3, this is on our list. Just not moving it. Sorry, I must take them. So our submission still in district council on there. Waikiki. Chair Scott, seconded Councillor Ward.
I just acknowledge the fact that yourself and I did that submission. I think they're grateful that we tuned up late in the day. Few tech issues, but I think it's a good document that they're trying to put forward and seek submissions on. It actually gives them an opportunity to actually click into some other things around like GCP and spatial planning stuff. So I think it's a well thought out piece of work, and it should give them some good results. And also, no, I won't say it. I won't say it. So,
would you like to speak now, Councillor Ward, or do you want to reserve to the So, Councillor Edge.
Yeah, I think it's a really good submission, and complimenting Selwyn District Council on the things that they've got included in their plan. And the things that I picked up in their submission were related to reference to the spatial plan, targeted urban growth and intensification of Kainga Nohanga, and regeneration of the natural environment is another thing that Selwyn are wanting to do. And the mention too of the public transport aspirations, but noting that Evans being taken out because of low patronage. But that's not to say that the Selwyn's plan is aspirational, and under their page 93, under their section movement, in paragraph 3, I think it is, that they do mention reference to the MRT going beyond where we're for it at the moment, connecting Wollaston and Preble City, and then Dunsandel and Darfield. Well, for other aspirational things, 100-year plan or whatever, the settlement is growing daily. And then on page 94, reference to the RPS down the bottom there in the closing comments about regional collaboration, localism, and shared aspirations for our communities. So it's really good and really good submission.
Anyone else? I'll say well, I was keen to be president of the commission. So, and it's really exciting that the plan, like they put in puts forward the future going over 50 to 100 years. I mean, there's so much is possible to do and achieve in 50 to 100 years. It's, I think risk is looking at that far that you sort of feeling that you have to progress too much too fast and things over activate also need to get better for this council. They're actually really committed to getting stuff done now. Pushing, and we've had that and submissions to us on public transport, so consistently constantly more like we want to get on. And so it's great to see it, and I think they have a big advantage is they're putting their stake in the stand in this time where they're growing fast, and they have so much opportunity to do so much better than other urban areas that are trying to retrofit, desperately trying to readdress issues that we've created because we didn't see what was coming. And so I think they've got a real opportunity to be great. It'll be really exciting to watch it play out. I hope they are able to deliver on what they put down on paper. It looks really good. So I look forward to it. And what I think it's beautiful. That's the rule.
Thanks, Vicky. I mean, I personally think it's a very excellent submission, and I mean, that they want to make positive things happen in the future. Thanks to Chair Scott and Councillor Southworth for the work you've done in here. Excellent future direction, shows an aspiration going forward now.
All those in favour? Then we have the second one, Pauline seconding.
I actually think it's all of the speak to this one.
Yeah, I do too.
So receives, well, I will make sure
I've got a bit ahead of
everyone gets a chance to speak. We all can speak. But anyway, so this is receiving the notes, various consultations as be selected and then quite a lot actually come in. So yeah, good. Really helpful to have that outlining what it is going into the consideration for it one, because we cannot actually, well, we could actually do all of them, but then you need to do anything else which we've actually want to get on with as well. So really good to see if we put those make sure decisions and policy accounts wouldn't be so we'll move for a second. Councillor difficult to speak with.
Yeah, so thanks to our staff person down there. I'll look for you. I can't see you because there's too many heads in the way. We're putting this together. It's really important. And I think it feels buried within the report a little bit for the significance of this particular one piece of information. As you start building it, especially those 14 changes to the national policy statements, national environmental standards, a couple of new ones that this government's going to put in, the things that they're going to appeal, the high level RMO changes that they're putting through. I hope this starts to become a picture for us. And I actually think this, as councillors around this table, probably one of the most important, well, not the most important, but a very important piece of the puzzle for us to get our heads around, because we are going to be pulled in a lot of different directions. And what we focus on is going to be really important. We do not have the resources to keep, flying the sky all over the place. We really do need to nose down, and I think this will help us. It's a really big piece of work and a lot of work non-central government, and they're going to come through here. So it's really cool to start getting this picture. And as I said, I encourage everybody around this table to have a look at this, to understand it, and come to this table with a view of what we want to tackle and what we don't. So, thank you.
Yeah, just wanted to acknowledge what Leon said. Yeah, the RMA reform listed in the agenda. It's pretty massive, and of course, it's really important for this council, the regional councils as well. So I'm sure we'll be working together on that. And yeah, really acknowledge what Vicky said about the submission criteria on point 29 there. I think that's really good for us to see. And I think the submission process has been working really well. We get a real clear steer from staff early on about intentions and the process about how we're going to do it. Every councillor's got the opportunity to be involved emotionally. There are some that have been pretty tight turnaround, so that's been a bit. Yeah, I think the focus has been really good, and there's some really good submissions and some really good skills from the table here. So we just want to acknowledge that, and even though there's quite a few chunky things on that list, so yeah, there is going to be some decisions to make coming up, and a lot of work to do. So acknowledge that. Thank you.
Okay. So.
Yes, yeah, thanks for bringing this to us as well. Yeah, looking at the list you've got here, the marine and coastal area, and obviously the bill will come through and make a decision about submission. But as I mentioned the other day, my concern is will there be references to the national policy statement on coastal environment, and what effect it might have going forward. So just keeping an eye on that one, really. The other one, the local government water services bill, obviously that's going to come out, and it's a bit of a first step by the look of it. There's a reference to Mana O to why the approach to waste standards. So it'd be interesting what that's all about too, in terms of the water to Mana O to why related to perhaps discharge of wastewater either to the oceans or over land. The Crown Minerals Act Amendment Bill, obviously a proposed package is going to come forward, and possibly a submission on that. I didn't get a chance to ask a question, but the last I recall,
Sorry, Kat,
a few trienniums.
Question, we can bring stuff back.
If somebody thinks they know, I'm sure there was previous council put forward a resolution not to allow fracking within Canterbury. And I don't know the background to that, but it struck me as we're such a rebellious council, perhaps we could ensure that no petroleum exploration takes place off our coast either. But anyway, it'd be interesting to find out what the council resolution was in terms of policy, strategy, no fracking within Canterbury.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, actually. My concern is there's so much influence, the coastal policy statement, and in particular, the ability to change some of the restrictions within the Marine Mammal Sanctuaries Act as well, especially those provisions activities that are currently not allowed, such as seismic assessment for gas and oil, which is off the coast, and that's within the sanctuary itself. But if they start, if there's sort of, perhaps a feeling or inclination to start addressing some of those policy statements for the coast, then we're looking at having to really act very swiftly. I just hope we are prepared ahead, knowing that these potentially are coming up for submission. Could we have, even if you feel it's coming, can we somehow have an early forewarning so that we can actually submit well on them? Because some days you don't know what's coming and a short notice, but as soon as, I think we need to have the ability to have input, please.
Yeah, I just think that we need to be very cognizant in making sure that we're actually submitting on something that your organisation's got experience with, and it's now bring about focus, focusing ourselves on stuff that's really important to this organisation.
And this region.
Well, and sorry, in the region, which aligns with the points that Councillor Swigg's initially this.
Just coming back to the fracking comment. If I remember, quite a few years ago, Tarunanga, this came up, and it was very much a negative response. Because a lot of it was about the fluid injection, actually, and what's in that fluid. It goes into because there was a number of tests that were done where fracking was undertaken, and it was about the pollution of the underground amplifiers as well. And there was some kind of relationship also with waste.
Fracking in the UK is caused some earthquakes in the ocean. And it's certainly caused. Yes,
I think it's something we need to keep it.
I think everyone's had a say what's to say on this bit. So we'll anyone to those who are in favour. Anything else? Okay, that's carried. So we've got 7 minutes left until we have to extend the meeting. So I'll just extend the meeting in case I don't think we're going to take much longer, but just in case.
Let's take 7 minutes.
So we'll just it will take some moment to do an extension. So we'll just extend. So the people will Chair Scott will then Councillor Pauling to the second for to meet them. So we'll just move on then to the final item. So item 9.1, which but yeah, we voted extension we haven't. Sorry, for those who were available on the extension to the party. Finished. Aye. That's carried. Right, so moving on then to the final item, 1, which is the major resolution status report. And so Director will speak to this item.
Thank you, Chair. The resolutions tracker is still a working process which we just transition from one of the committee processes to the other. So I'll just note that in terms of the resolution tracker, the second item, which is around Schedule 1 towards peer engagement, that means we closed that off last time and the feedback was tabled. So we will close it off. Just turning over the page, if we go to page 102 of the agenda, consultation of Canterbury transport plan that we're supposed to be going out with novel reading on that, particularly novels. The one at the bottom of the page, we're 11 days of giving letter from the mayors to the minister, so that's very close there. And in terms of the Water and Land Committee, we received the update on that, so that's actually, if we just go back to page 101, there's been already some reporting on the 8 climate resilience program shovel-ready projects in the catchment committee, but there will be a report back to the regional delivery committee so it's being completed.
Just following up on that, so I know that in those projects the government required really quite extensive reporting. And will we see that report, the final report that went to the government to continue the close off report?
Lee said that it'll come back to the regional delivery hopefully in November, so we'll make that point too.
Any other questions? Before then?
I just wanted to pick up on a point. It's not on the resolution anymore, but it wasn't the last meeting. It's just about the biodiversity strategy stuff. And just to note that there is still that stuff that's outstanding around the steering group and working group establishment. We just need to keep in mind. So yes, I know we took that, the resolution set off, but there are some things that are outstanding from it, so that's what I'm saying.
It's in,
Put back in actually.
yeah, it's interesting, the wording in the resolution is actually really important as to whether it sits in here and stays, or whether you go, oh yes, we got underway, or yeah, we opened it. Obviously, it's just keeping track of those, that's the purpose, isn't it? I will be bringing it into the work programme.
That's my fault, the time the one was September, so I mean, we're in September, that's all good. We've got time, but
Any other questions?
Yeah, my question relates to the item that was passed last week at the council meeting from PC8, and it started to see that we council for a bit of an anomaly, yes, to get past there. But how do we get this onto the resolution tracker here so that we can keep an eye, or keep a bit of an abreast over it from this meeting?
We'll do that and we'll bring it back. Angie can provide a bit of an update on the other that's been out until 1 other.
But yeah, but will it end up in this? But will it end up in this resolution tracker?
It'll be on our work programme, won't it? I think the problem at the moment is we haven't actually nailed our work programmes, both delivery and strategy. And then when we have, we'll see what things are coming through and start picking them up through the resolution tracker.
But my point is that we've got resolution trackers here. It's a resolution that it was coming to this council initially, a committee, because of something, well, I don't know exactly here, but it went to the council for to be passed, but as per the what do you call them? In terms of reference, it sits with the committee, and I just want to make sure that the resolution itself ends up in this committee's resolution tracker so that we have visibility at this level, not the work program level, but just at the resolution side. And that happened.
Looking at all of it, it's been on the council resolution tracker, so we'll have an offline conversation about how we manage it.
What the resolution says. That was in the resolution tracker in the council meeting, it could just be that it's referred to this committee. And then it can come up in this resolution.
I'm sorry, one of them was an action at that point. So it's whether.
Let's not debate it.
No.
Just figure it out and make sure that we get it.
Yeah. So no more questions? So do we have resolution? So just no status.
We're going to keep going.
Cool now, yeah.
So you have a mover? I can move it. Robertson. So for those who are in favour, we say aye. And any against? So that's right. So then we just have next meeting, just to advise that the next meeting is be held on the 9th of October. That will then come to us in that meeting, and so then we have Mihi, Whakatau.
Well, I think just leave it open because we've got friends.
So we'll leave that open. So that meeting.
Thank you.